Parshas Bamidbar, and as we know, we're holding by Rosh Chodesh Sivan and preparing for Matan Torah. But a very basic question. We're all thinking about our Shavuos plans, what we're going to learn, where we're going to learn, who we're going to learn with, how we're going to arrange our time. Chatzi Lachem, Chatzi Lashem. But a very, very fundamental question, and that is, what is the mitzvah of Talmud Torah? Seemingly an unnecessary question, especially for people who are learning Torah. Let's flush it. So why would I ask it? So let's take a look. Pasuk says in Eintich Sedra, Elu told us Aaron and Moshe b'yom dibur Hashem es Moshe b'Har Sinai. These are the told us of Aaron and Moshe. Elu shmos b'nei Aaron and Bechor, Nadav Avihu, and Loz of Isamar. And that lists only the children of Aaron and Cain. So the Gemara says in Sanhedrin, Rashi brings, Ve'enu masker ela b'nei Aaron. Only b'nei Aaron are mentioned. V'nikru told us Moshe. Yet they're still called Todas Moshe, the children of Moshe. Why? Right? The one who switches on the Torah. That someone who teaches his friend's son Torah, it's as if he gave birth to that child. That's what we learn from this Chazal. Now this Chazal needs to be juxtaposed to another Chazal. And that is in Parshas Lech Lecha. Pasuk says by Avram and Sarah, when they were leaving, Pasuk says, "V'yikach Avram es Sarah ishto v'lodu as ben ochiv as kol rechushim asher rochashu," all of the wealth that they had gathered, v'es hanefesh asher asu b'charan, and also the nefesh they made in Charan, the souls they made in Charan. So another Gemara in Sanhedrin says like this: what does it mean, nefesh asu b'charan? They brought them to know the Rebbeinu Shalom. Avram Agaris and Anoshim, Sarah Agaris and Anoshim, Avram the men, Sarah the women. Umala leva kosev kilo asum. Asher nefesh charon asum. They made the nefesh. So you see a mamish, a different lashon. The lashon by Moshe Rabbeinu is yoldu. He gave birth. The lashon over here by Avram Avinu is asum. They made. So it seems like very interchangeable, but you'll soon see that it's not interchangeable at all. Let's begin with the Rambam. The Rambam in Hilchos Talmud Torah. The Rambam begins Hilchos Talmud Torah very interesting. It doesn't say Chayav Ish Limud HaTorah. So the Rambam Noshim v'Avonim P'tur Talmud Torah. First, you should know women and slaves, they're part. Avokot na'ivach avil l'chayil l'lamdo Torah. But a child, the father is buchil to teach him Torah. Shenemar l'matam osam es b'nechem l'daber bon. Says the Rambam, the father has to teach a child Torah. Continues the Rambam Halachah Beis. Kashem she'adam chayv l'lamdes b'noi. Just like he has to teach his child, chayv l'lamdes ben b'noi. He has to teach his grandchild. Not only your children, but even your children's children. Not only your children and your grandchildren. Everybody. Teach everybody you can. Strikingly, there's no mention of the mitzvah to learn Torah. We're only talking about the mitzvah to teach Torah. Child, grandchild, everybody else. Then the Rambam finally comes in Halacha Gimel. Right? A person whose father didn't teach him Torah. Then Halacha Gimel comes a halacha that if the father didn't teach his son Torah, he's a chiyuv to teach himself. Doesn't seem like a very straightforward word to tell me Hilchos Talmud Torah. Tell me first he has to teach his son, his grandson, everybody else, and then if he's never learned, so then he has to teach himself. He's mechuyev to go learn. So the emes is that the Rambam is very meduyik in the Gemara Kedushin. The Gemara Kedushin Chav Tes, as we know, famous Mishnah, called mitzvahs aval ben, all the mitzvahs, and the Brisa brings what those mitzvahs are, and amongst them is Talmud Torah. Says the Gemara on Amud Beis, Limud Torah. What's the mocker? The father has to teach the child Torah. Like the Rambam brought. If he doesn't learn from his father, then he has to teach himself. Pella. The Rambam is mamish the Gemara. Mamish the Gemara. What's the pshat? What's the pshat that the Hilchas Talmud Torah, this is the Hilchas Talmud Torah in the Gan Shas. The Hilchas Talmud Torah is right here. Kedushin Chav Tes. What's the pshat? The Hilchas Talmud Torah begins with the chiyuv to teach Torah, and then chiyuv to learn Torah. Seems to be opposite. We all sit and learn Torah. We want to teach Torah after we learn. Talking about teaching before learning, that seems going backwards. So, you see in the Rambam, Sefer Mitzvahs, listen to how the Rambam is magdil the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. How does he describe this in Talmud Torah? Someone has seen this Rambam before, it might be somewhat surprising. Zog the Rambam mitzvah yud aleph. Mitzvah yud aleph, he should sivonu lilmo chochmas ha-Torah, we're mitzuvah to learn the chochmas ha-Torah, ulalomda, and to teach it. Zeh hu nikra Talmud Torah. Talmud Torah is not the pshat, learn Torah, and there's a big mitzvah to teach Torah. So the Rambam, Lilmod Elalamed is the taich, that's the pshat in mitzvahs Talmud Torah. Teaching is part of Talmud Torah. This is the part that the Rambam brings. V'hu omer shinantam levanecha. The Rambam brings, what's the makar of the mitzvah? Teach your children. For a second, you have to learn yourself also, right? So the Rambam, no, teach your children. Loshin sifri levanecha letalmidecha. Talmidecha. So it comes out a very interesting thing. The way the Rambam is magda the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, the way he describes the mitzvah of Talmud Torah is not learn, it's learn and teach. Shenamar, because Shenam levanach, you have to teach. It almost seems, I might be going too far here, but it almost seems that the ikr is to learn and to teach. In other words, the ikr is to give it over, not just to learn. Avada, you have to learn. Everyone has to learn. Mechuyev Talmud Torah. Vasag b'divrei Torah. Every morning make a bracha. Don't make a bracha to teach, make a bracha to learn. And yet, the way the Rambam seems to say the mitzvah from the Shas and the way he says it in the Yad seems to be that the focus, the dogish, is on teaching. And that's why the Rambam begins the halachas with teaching one's child, one's grandchild, everybody else. And then he says, you didn't learn from your father didn't teach you, never. The person never followed Torah. So maybe, of course he has to learn Torah. It's not Potter. But say he's Potter, it's not Potter, it's even the Gemara. He doesn't learn. From his father, he has to be taught. He has to teach himself. So, I was very bothered by this. In other words, what's the makar of the Gemara? The Rambam is l'chara the Gemara. What's the pshat in the Gemara? Where does the Gemara get this from? That it seems to be that the dogish, that the emphasis is on the lamed. It's on teaching. The pashtus it's a pasuk. You say every single day in Krishma. What's the order? Teach your children. You should speak in them. First comes the mitzvah teaching in the pasuk. The pasuk you say in Krishma. First comes the mitzvah of teaching, and then you should speak in them. You should learn also. Why would this be the case? It seems to defy how we look at the whole mitzvah of Talmud Torah. Again, not to minimize how important it is to teach Torah, it's Torah, it's a great zach, but it seems to be the primary thing over here. So perhaps the pshat could be like this. Moshe kibul Torah misinai. Moshe and Klal Yisrael was not given a mitzvah to learn Torah. That's not how it began. It began that the Rebbeinu Shalom gave Torah to Moshe. In other words, the tzura, how Torah came into the world, was a Kadosh Baruch who was teaching Moshe. That's how it's shtold back. That's how it's created. So the whole idea of Torah is, so to speak, to be taught Torah. Not to learn Torah. You have to learn Torah, right? But the whole way it came into the world is a Kadosh Baruch who was teaching Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu is teaching Aaron and Banav and Klal Yisrael, etc. Doris Adam Fernayim until weiter, forever. But the way Torah comes into the world is a teaching. Now, what's the pshat in that? What's the pshat in the fact that Torah is about teaching Torah? The ikar, it seems, more than learning Torah. Again, you have to learn to teach, not minimizing learning. So there's a very interesting Gemara in Kedushin. This same sugya. It's a machlekes chachamim in Rabbi Yehuda. Gemara says shy like This. Gemara says, Torah Rabon. Who lilmod ubeno lilmod. He has to learn, the son has to learn. Who called him livano? He comes first. Why? Pashas, because mitzvah gufa adif. Now, what are we talking about? He has to learn. They should both learn, right? So Rashi says over here, because there isn't enough mezainis for both. He can't afford to. He can't sit and cuddle all day, and his child's not going to have. They're not going to be able to tuition, right? So what should he do? He has to go to work as much as he needs to pay tuition, and he has to learn also. But the ikar is his son should learn, right? Zog there, if that's the shiloh between him and his son, says the Tanakama, he should do it. Why? Pasa mishra gufo. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer in beno zorz meluach v'tumudim miskayin biyodo. If this son is a mitzuyin, and the Torah is going to be, he's got more hatzlach in learning. So then, beno kodmo, his son comes first. How do you understand Rabbi Yehuda's shita? Mitzvah shebugu for adif. It's a fair Gemara. Gemara begins to say parakadushin. Mitzvah shebugu for adif. Why? So good. The son's gavaldik. The son's going to be a big Talmud Chacham. He's going to be a Rosh Shiva. He's going to write Svarim. It's wonderful, right? But what about him? He has a mitzvah to learn himself. Why should he? Why? So, couple shots like this is that because the son is going to have more hatzlocha in learning, so memela there's going to be more Torah in the world. In other words, the kavana for Torah is not stam that I should learn. It's that there should be as much Torah in the world as possible. And how do I facilitate that? By teaching. How do I teach? I have to learn. But the objective of Torah is not that I should learn. The objective of Torah is that I should be Torah in the world. Hashem Eretz Malaya. Hashem wants Torah in the world. How do I do that? I learn. But the goal is more Torah in the world. The very famous Maisa, Rosh Reichman Zatzal, in his later years, as you know, what he did for the world, all the yeshivas and koil and that he supported and everything, right? He came to Moshe Feinstein. Maybe you don't know about it. He was a big masmid when he was in yeshiva. Rosh Reichman wasn't just a person who went out and made $1 billion. He was a big masmid. He that he became a big, very wealthy man, and he tremendous about stock. So he came to Moshe. He wanted to know. I don't know if he was 70 years old, he was 80 years. I'm not sure. He wanted to know, can I cut back on my business so I can learn more? Look what I've done so much, it's time to learn. Moshe said, no, you can't. But you have to learn. No. Why? Because look at all the Torah coming in the world from you. There's more Torah coming in the world from everything you're giving than the amount of Torah that you're going to learn by yourself. What's a Maisa? Maisa Pasha is what we're talking about. The cheshbon has to be for all of us, for everybody. How is there going to be more Torah in the world? That's what Baruch Hashem wants. He wants more Torah in the world. That's what's mashma from the Gemara. It's mashma from the Rambam. He wants more. So I have to make a cheshbon. If the pshat is that I sit and learn longer, and it's going to be more big Talmud Chacham, more Torah is going to come into learn to be the Nevada. But if it could be to some point, there's going to be a decision that has to be made. Where's more Torah going to come from? That's the cheshbon. That's how the Rambam's magda the mitzvah. The mitzvah Talmud Torah is lilmod u'lelamed. It's not just lilmod. It's lelamed. Torah wants Torah in the world. And it could be, with this, we can answer the original shiloh we had. It says by Moshe Rabbeinu, it listed B'nai Aaron, because Kol Malad Ben B'no Torah is Kilo Yoldo. He gave birth. Mashen came by Avraham Avinu, it was Nefesh also B'charon. He made the Nefesh. What's the difference between making the Nefesh and giving birth? So Rashi's lesson over here in Sanhedrin and Tzadi Tes, where the Gemara brings this more darshans, more darshans by Avraham Avinu. Listen, Asher also b'charon. So Rashi, the Midagaminan, the Shabira Laraisa, he caused them to be attached or to be enslaved to Torah. That's what he did. He brought them to be attached to Torah. B'charon v'korei le'asiyah. That's called asiyah. Kilo asu. What's kilo asu? Lo'oseh devar mitzvah. Avraham Avinu taught all of his talmidim, hundreds and thousands of them. He taught them to do mitzvahs. Where are all the talmidim of Avraham Avinu? Where are they? Aside from Yitzchak, Yaakov, right? There should be a world filled with talmidim of Avraham Avinu. Look what he did. He turned over the world. Nimrod wanted to kill him. He was the arch nemesis of Nimrod. Where are they? He taught him mitzvahs. They're not there. Moshe came. Moshe Rabbeinu. He taught him Torah. He didn't teach him mitzvahs. Avada, Torah has mitzvahs in it. But he taught him Torah. Kilu Yoldo. Where are the Talmidim of Moshe Rabbeinu? Many are sitting in the room right now. And upstairs and all over the world. Talmud of Moshe Rabbeinu, or after door, right? Because Torah, Yaldu, what's Pshat Yaldu? What's Pshat when a person gives birth? In a normal situation, a person gives birth, the child he gives birth to has the capacity to reproduce himself. That child he had is going to have another child. It's going to have, because it goes on and on and on. That's the koyach of Leida. It's a live thing. And therefore, Zog the Torah, Zog Chazal, that when Moshe Rabbeinu, he taught B'nai Aaron's Kili Yoldo, because the pshat is that he invested them with the koyach to be maimed talmidim themselves. And that's what Torah is all about. Torah is all about being maimed talmidim to fill the world with the Rebbeinu Shalom's Torah. And that's why the Rambam saying, based on the Gemara, is that the mitzvah Talmud Torah is the Rebbeinu Shalom's Torah in the world. So now, when we go into Shavuos, however we're going to decide how we spend our time, but we should realize that this is what we're makabel. We're being makabel the Torah that the Rebbeinu Shalom wants to turn in the world. And Bez Hashem Yisborach, as much as I can do that, that's why I was created. L'kach mitzart.